Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm the owner of Classic Shoe and Leather Service in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a third-generation cobbler with over 30 years experience. Our facility repairs all leather items. Come on in, let's see what we're repairing today. So, today we have a pair of red patent leather Christian Louboutins. We're going to be replacing the toes, the heels with some nice red rubber heels. We're going to be replacing the toes because the toes have gotten worn. And then we're going to be applying the red rubber top soles. Red rubber top soles are for the protection and comfort of the shoe. The threefold advantage is for slip resistance. You're walking on rubber, you get a little bit more slip resistance. We're walking in the rain, into hardwood floors, linoleum, marble, anything like that. You get to have a little bit more traction. The comfort is there because you get just a little bit of added material so you don't feel the ground so much as you're walking. A little bit nice advantage. And the third advantage is the color. You have a red rubber top sole that is color fast all the way through. That means that as you're wearing it, you end up with the same color consistency the entire time you're wearing through until it gets worn out, which you get it replaced, instead of having this where the leather shows through the paint. Now the process that we're going to be doing today is sanding the toes for the tips, then gluing and applying the toes to the new tips to the toes. We're also going to be removing the red heels. We're going to be sanding the heels after we've glued the counter back together and leveling that out. Then we're going to be putting the new rubber heels on. Then we'll be trimming out the toes and then sanding for the top soles, gluing those up and applying those. Thank you. So the breakdown of the red patent heels is very simple. It's same as most dowels. Dowel is a steel pin wrapped in rubber. The steel pin, it goes into a metal shaft that runs the length of the base of the heel. Now the steel pin is actually inset into the rubber. Pull it out here, you can see. What we're going to do is we're going to pull the rubber cap off of the pin, then we're going to pull the pin out of the shoe. Now I'm actually going to do it the wrong way first to show you. This is not the proper way to do it. You're not just supposed to do it by hand, manhandling it like this, but it's kind of quick, and if you know what you're doing, it can be a little bit faster and a little bit easier, but it comes with consequences. If you break it, it's really a pain to fix. So what you're going to do, you have to apply a little pressure. You have to apply a little pressure with the pliers here against the head of the pin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly pull back and forth as I pull against the shoe itself. You can see it slightly starts to move. Now what's happening there is, as you can see on the inside, there's a little split. Now these are actually called split pin dowels. Now the split pin dowel is a pressure fit rivet, just like every other pressure fit rivet, but the way that it does is as it goes in there, the pin compresses. And as it compresses, it creates more pressure on the sleeve to hold the pin in. So that's the sleeve right there. All right, and that's the pin. As you can see, let's see if we can find it here. It's, there it is. You can see that that has been compressed, and it's a good bit smaller than what it started out as when it was original. So now what we're going to do is we're going to peel back the breasting of the heel counter just a little bit, because that needs to be re-glued so that it will be nice and tight and level and not wrinkled up or anything like that. So we'll put a little bit of glue just on the edge. Now you really don't need that much. This is contact cement. Contact cement. So we push that together and then we pull it back apart. Now the reason that I did that is I didn't want very much glue on there. I just wanted to do one quick layer, and I want it to dry very, very fast. So I took the layer that was on the breasting, I pushed it up against the counter, and then I pulled it back. And in that few seconds, it dried enough to where now it is actually on there. So we don't have to worry about it. It's nice and level, and when we sand it, we'll get it all straight. So when we put the pin on there, it looks beautiful. All right, now the other one is a little bit more worn. As you can see, we're all the way through the pin. So we're once again going to pull off the cover, but we're going to do it the proper way this time. We're actually going to put it onto the jack. We're going to remove the rubber cap by just pulling it up and pulling it away. Then we're going to slightly apply pressure to get that to pop up. And then we're going to take it over to the heel puller. This is the heel wheel. A little piece of cloth on the heel wheel. And put that through there so that there's no damage done to the counter. The heel goes right through the center there. Then we're going to roll this right up. Let's remove that little pin there so that that's not in the way. And roll that up. And slide the pin right in between. Push it down, squeeze it together, and we're going to pull. You can see that the cover right here is protecting the heel so it doesn't get any damage done, and it slides right out. Very, very easy. So you can see how that took a lot less effort than doing it by hand. That's why it's the proper way to do it. Now, we're going to, once again, pull back the breasting. As you can see, the breasting is pulling away from the cover. We're going to pull the cover back away from the base, like that. We're going to apply a small amount of glue to the cover itself. You're going to push the cover back onto the base, applying a little pressure with your thumb, then your fingers, and squeeze all of the cover back around the breasting, back around the cover, or back around the base. Then we're going to pull it back apart, just like this. You can see that the glue is attached to both sides just enough to where it's going to cover. We give it just a few seconds. Push it back on, like this. Push it around, push it around. And we have a nice wrinkle-free cover back on. Then we're going to do the breasting. Put just a little bit of glue on the breasting, just like before. Quickly apply it to the cover. Take it back loose. Make sure there's no excess glue, because we don't want excess glue, because then it doesn't look pretty. And this is what we're all about. We want to make it look pretty. All right, that's dry. Push this back up. And that is ready to sand. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the red patent Louboutins. We're going to be sanding for the toes and for the heels. It's about to get a little loud, so I'm not going to talk while this is happening. Okay, so we're going to be gluing on the toes, the tips for the red patent Louboutins before we put on the rubber top soles. Now, what we're going to be doing, actually going to be using a thin skyvered material. You can see this is just a thin skyver because we don't really need that much material for this particular toe. We want to keep it nice and thin since we're putting the top sole on afterwards. We're going to apply the contact cement in a nice even coat. We only want the glue to go where it's supposed to. We don't want the glue to go where it's not supposed to because that makes a mess. And then we have to clean it up afterwards, which is extra work, and we don't really like that. We like to be lazy. Lazy is nice. So, glue that one. We're going to come back and glue the other one the same way. Nice and easy and quick. Just like that. All right, that one's nice and glued together. Glue's not where it's supposed to be, or not where it's not supposed to be is where it is supposed to be. Always very nice. Now with your tips, they are fairly pliable, but since they're going on a nice little slightly rounded toe right there, before you glue them, it's always good to give them a little pinch like this. What that does is that helps the leather to go ahead and curve into the place that it's going to sit. And that way when the glue is on here and it dries, it actually dries in a little bit of a curved fashion. I find that actually helps it stick to the glue, stick to the shoe better, so you don't have any gaps in there. Because you have gaps in there, they're just a little unsightly. I want to fill them. Anyway, I got skyver right here. Do that. Bend it. It's got a nice little curve to it. I'm going to put a first coat on there. These are going to get 2 coats of glue. The first coat is probably going to dry for about 10 minutes because it's a nice leather tip. It'll dry pretty quick, and then nice leather tip on the shoe itself. That'll dry pretty quick. We'll put the second coat on there. That'll probably dry for about a half an hour, 45 minutes till it gets really nice and dry. And then we'll stick them together, and that'll give us a good bond so that we have a really strong bond for when we're trimming and sanding the toes for the top sole. Okay, so it is time. As you can see, the glue has dried completely. It is time to put our second coat on our tips and toes for our patent red Louboutins. So we're going to apply, once again, a nice even coat. We want to make sure that we get plenty of glue on there, but we don't want any globs whatsoever. So we make it nice and even, like that. Nice good coat. And come back. These are so small that I don't even have to re-dip for that one. No double dipping. All right. Nice even coat there. Beautiful. Very good. And same thing on our little thin skivers here. Now, if you'll notice, these, as they dried, they actually dried curved, and they now are kind of stiff in the curved fashion. That's because the glue, as it dried, it connected to the material really well, and it constricted as it dried. So it pulled that in, which is what we really wanted. We want to make sure we have a nice curve so it fits the sole properly. Okay, once again, nice even coat, no globs. All right, we're gonna let that dry for a little while and come back and stick together. All right, so the red Louboutins are ready for their toes. We're gonna use a pointy toe jack. Move that out this way just a little bit. And put the sole on here. Now we notice that it's bent. You can also see that it is thicker on one side than it is on the other. So we're going to make sure that the thicker side goes towards the end of the toe. Line it right up with that glue line, just a hair over it, like that. Push it down really well. And we're actually going to use a hammer to put this together because it's a nice small area and the mallet just doesn't quite put the right pressure. Pull it off the jack. You can see you got very good adhesion to the shoe and to the sole that's there. Alright, so we've let our toes for our red top soles on our red patent Louboutins dry for a little while. We want it to dry for a good long while to make sure that it's going to stick well while we're trimming out the toe and getting it ready for the top sole. It's really simple. Just come over here, go 5-in-1. No, not extremely close. Pretty simple. We're going to put on the heels. Now these had red heels on them, so we're going to put red heels back on. Process is pretty simple. Just kind of drill it out a little bit to make sure that it's clear. I want to make sure that shaft is clear, so no debris in there or anything like that. Not actually drilling anything. Take a split pin, dowel, set it into the shaft, give it a little tap to set it in place, and set. Looks nice. Oops. Oh, wow. That one looks like it's a little long. Uh-oh. Okay, so we're going to pull the cover back off. Unfortunately, we waste the pin when this happens, but it's a nice little lesson. So we have to come back over to the heel wheel. Set our heel in the heel wheel because this is the proper way to take off the heel. Up, set, squeeze, and pull. Okay, so that pin's just a little bit long. Let me show you how to measure this. So when that happens, we take our little stick here, stick it in the shaft, pull out the split pin. Ultimate perfect measuring guide. Back over there, that's only a hair, so that's going to be pretty easy. And we're going to take our other Dremel. Okay, once again, I'm supposed to be a professional, so don't do this. All right, nice little trick there. Now the only difficulty with that is it does give you a little burr on the end, and it makes it to where it flares out just a little bit. So I got to go through and remove that burr. Make sure that that goes to the inside there. I know they look small and like they'd squeeze into any place, no problem, but it's actually a pretty tight fit. All right, so now let's try this again. I know I had a hammer around here. There it is. Okay, so this will be a little more challenging to set because it doesn't have the rounded portion. There it goes, taps in, tap into place, and seated very nicely. Okay, very good. Next is going to be the finisher. We're going to go ahead and trim out the toe, and we're going to sand it for our red rubber top soles. It's going to be noisy, so we won't be talking then. Okay, now we're gonna go put the first coat of glue on the top soles for these. And later on, we'll put the second coat on. So the glue is pretty straightforward. You want to make sure that you get a nice even coat. We're actually going to be doing two coats on both the rubber top soles and the shoes themselves. The reason we remove the paint is because glue doesn't stick to paint very well. Pretty simple and straightforward there. The leather, on the other hand, is a very porous surface, and this is a latex-based contact cement, and that makes it to where those two materials bond very well together because contact cement likes porous surfaces. So a nice even coat all the way around, all the way out to all the sanded edges. Anywhere that's sanded gets glue. Pretty easy. Nice even coat, no big globs. Everything will dry even. I'm going to do the same thing with the top soles themselves. I'm going to go back and forth to even out the glue. Once again, we want nice even strokes in our glue to make sure that everything dries at the same time. Very important. Now we're going to be putting on the second coat. Second coat's the same as the first coat. You just want it nice and even all the way across. You can see that the glue has dried because there's no more real shiny marks in it. Shiny is how it's really wet. On the second coat, it kind of ends up shiny afterwards no matter what, but you'll be able to still tell where it's dry or that it's gotten dry. And as long as you make it nice and even, it dries properly. So once again, just do nice even coat. You want to do nice strokes all the way across. Get all your edges. Paint that glue on. Just like that. Nice and even. No lumps. Very good. Second shoe the same way. And then the top soles once again, no shiny marks, show that it's dry, come back through. Once again, a nice even coat all the way across. Don't want junk in your glue. All right, very nice, very even. We're going to let that dry. That's going to dry for a couple hours before we put it together. We always want the solvents that are in the glue to go ahead and completely dry out as much as possible before we stick them together. That creates the best kind of bond possible between the rubber and the leather. Other than that, see you in a few. So the soles have dried for a while, good long while, and they are ready now to put onto the shoes. Pretty simple process. You want to start from the back, line up your line, just down your line really good, roll the sole on all the way to the toe, press in the center, press to the sides, all the way around. Now we have two different jacks for this because this is a pointy-toed ladies. We use one jack for the majority of the shoe. Put up in here, all around the body. Always start from the center and work your way out. That's very important. You want to make sure that all bubbles get pushed to the outside. Come around the edges. Now we're going to switch over to the other jack here, which is a pointy toe jack. Make sure we can get all the way up into that toe. Very important. Don't want the toe to come loose while you're walking. Alright. So now we're going to check the edges. Edge, push it with finger, closed very well. Push on the other side, make sure it closes really well. Get a good nice seam. Then we're going to let that dry for a little while and we'll trim it out, make it look pretty. Okay, so we've let the soles dry for a full day. I'm coming back now. We're going to do a quick trim on them with some scissors. Now we want to trim fairly close, but not real close, because we don't actually want the scissors, the two blades, to pull on the leather and the rubber. Back. Just enough to get some of that excess off, and we'll let the finisher do the majority of the work at that point. So, trimmed off the excess. One corner there, one corner there. All right, so now we're going to go to the finisher, which is this lovely beast right here. And we're going to do a trimming, a rough trimming, and then a finer trimming, and then a finishing. And all of this is going to happen with a very, very noisy background. So we're not going to talk for a little while. All right. So now we're in the cleaning process. All we're going to do now is a little bit of glue removal, and we're going to apply a little touch-up dye to the edges and the bottom after the glue removal. Then we're going to clean them with Vinyl X, which is a really, really nice cleaner for these. So first, a little bit of a very, very mild acetone, which we'll go over in a gentle way to pull off the glue. You see, we just lightly rub. Now, important, don't rub up. Okay, you always rub away from the sole, because if you go up into the sole, then you're releasing the glue, which you don't want to do. You just want to get rid of it. All right, so got the glue off the surface there. You can actually use the very same stuff to come through, clean all the edges like this. Get anything that was left over, as well as little scuff marks that have been made here during the first couple of walkings on these. Get those off there before we get to cleaning them. And the edges here, always like to get in the edges. Very, very important. And see all that rolls up. All right. Wash that all down. Wipe off any excess. Back around here. No glue, no glue. That looks good. A little dust, no problem. Come over to this one. New spot on the rag. Always, always. New spot on the rag whenever you're cleaning something. Move your rag around very, very often. Rags are cheap. Louboutins are not. Okay. Get that off the toe there. That's looking good. All right. A little bit here. Go through. Get all the glue off the edges so it's a nice smooth surface. Just like that. Anything that's on the bottom of the sole, marks from putting it up on a chair or stool or something like that. Always nice to go ahead and get rid of those. Let's look for those on this one. Got a little watermark right there. We'll get rid of that. All right, those look like they're ready for dye. Close this back up. Put on a glove. Now, one of the best parts about this job is you get to do finger painting. Little bit. Not very much. As small as line as possible. What we're trying to do is just blend in this area a little bit. Back and forth, back and forth. Get to fill in that surface. Wipe off the little excess there. Excess on the top. Okay. One more swipe. Now I usually do about 2 or 3 coats of these to let it fill in. Just like that. Nice clean surface. After a couple of coats, that smooths out real good. I'll do that on the other one. Then I'll take off the glove and I'll show you the edges, which are just a little bit different. Okay. Smooth surface. That'll smooth out real nice. Take my glove off here and paint the edges. Painting the edges is pretty much the same thing, just done with a different tool. Now, the cool part about this particular paint is it has a little bit of a self-leveling to it. So as it dries, what looks like these big ridges in it turn out pretty smooth. And just go through around the whole edge like this. Fill it all in. Make it look pretty, like it blends. when you're walking down the street, you want it to be seamless. Make sure we're getting the cracks here. Come back and wipe off that little bit of excess that got on the pattern right there. Come back to that in just a second. Let's just get around this toe first. Get in there. There we go. Very good. All right. That's pretty much it. We'll let that dry. I'm going to put a second coat here in a little bit. All right, so now we have the second coat to do on bottoms. Once again, a little bit of paint. You don't really need that much. If you look closely, you can see how it's smoothed out from the first coat after it dried. You can see all those little lines disappeared, but we have this big ridge. So we're still trying to fill that in a little bit, make that nice and smooth. So once again, we come in and just paint the dye on like this. Pretty simple. Fill in all the corners and a nice smooth edge as much as you can. You can see the lines are still there, but it's not that big a deal. Come back. All right. And that's it. All right, so we are finishing up our red patent Louboutins. We have the top soles on them, the toes are on them, the top soles are on them, the heels are on them. The touch-up dye has been done on the bottoms as well as the sides to make those blend in and make them look really nice. Now we're going to go through and do a basic cleaning process. These were actually in pretty good shape when we came in. We had already, when we went over the dye along the edge, we had already cleaned up the edge with a little bit of cleaning fluid. So we got that stuff off of there already. Now they just need a little Vinyl X to clean them, condition them, give them a little protection from the sunlight and stuff like that. Also makes them really, really pretty because they shine real good. Now, the important thing to know about products and leather is that you never actually spray anything directly onto a leather item. You always spray it onto a rag and then you rub the item with it. So we're going to go through. Now, you do want to rub and you got to put a little pressure on here when you apply this, but you don't want to put so much pressure that you're going to pull off any of the dye that we put on there. So it's kind of a gentle balance there. All right, once you have it all rubbed in, you want to just switch over to your other shoe and rub it down. A little bit of extra spray. You can see there's nothing really on that one, so it's easy to go right back and do it again. Don't want to use dirty rags, of course, because you don't want to transfer dirt from one place to another. But if nothing came off and it's clean, keep applying the product and go. Okay, so that's all on there. Pretty even, letting it do its job. We're going to come back. So that's the side that I used. You can see a little bit of red came off. I'm going to flip over to this side. See, this side is clean and dry. Very, very important. So you're going to take that and you're going to rub and buff again. Now, what you're doing here is you're removing the excess product that is laying on the surface. And that's one of the things that gives it a nice high shine. Think about patent kind of like cleaning a window. You don't want to actually add things to it to make it shine. What you're trying to do is put something on there that's going to clean it and remove it from the surface so that it actually shows through. Same thing with patent. You don't want to add anything to it. You want to take what's on the surface off. That's what makes it look pretty. All right, so that one is done. It's a little bit damp. So we're going to flip over to the inside here. Another nice dry surface, and do the other one. Okay. You can see I really don't have a particular pattern in which way I go with this. It's kind of every different direction you can go. I do back and forth and circles and up and down and left and right and whatever I have to do to make sure that I get all the excess off. That's the most important thing, is getting the excess off. All right, so we have some very, very pretty Louboutins, nice and shiny. We are going to go through, let me get back to, that spot right there. We're going to go through and we're going to spray just a little bit of excess onto our rag right here. And we're going to go over the soles. Now what that does is that just kind of makes that shine, makes that pretty, evens out the color, takes that little top layer of film off of the top sole. We are going to be replacing our nose slips, but that's just kind of a stick-in material. That's no big deal. That's one of the last things we do before we put them in our bags on the shelf. Okay. I hope you like it. It looks pretty nice, huh? Not too bad. Not too bad at all. They turned out pretty. All right. I hope you liked them.